Hello guys. This is Recaps Now here. Today I am going to explain a movie called When I Get Home My Wife Always Pretends to Be Dead. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie starts with a married couple who have a unique and unconventional relationship. First we are introduced to a man called Jun, who happens to be the lead character of the movie. We then come to know that it was his second marriage to his now wife, Chai Kagami. Here we also learn that as his first marriage was a failure, so he does a contract marriage the second time around. In the contract it is stated that they would experience what it's like to be married, and if at the end of that period both parties are content, then they would renew their vows. None of them are bound to each other. If any one of them feels unhappy, they can terminate the relationship. As the story proceeds, we get to know that their third marriage anniversary was approaching, and that they had to decide on their future, whether they could stay on as a pair or not for the rest of their life. That's why we see Jun worry about his future while going back to his residence. On his return to home, he rings the bell and waits, but nobody answers. This felt strange to him because for the past 3 years, every day his wife used to welcome him home gladly. We then see Jun get into the house via a spare key, but he is shocked by what he saw inside. His wife Chai Kagami lay there in a devastating state, and there was blood coming out of her mouth. Jun quickly goes to his wife and tries to wake her up. Jun panics, seeing the situation, and he started to remember all the good times spent with his wife. After a few seconds, we see Jun trying to regain his composure, and is about to call the ambulance when Chai Kagami wakes up, and Jun is surprised to learn that Chai was playing a prank on him. We see Jun still shocked and frightened to see what happened. We see Chai Kagami notices this and calls him for dinner. At the dinner table we see a much relaxed Jun, and even he also gets involved in Chai's prank, and they share a laugh, and the mood becomes light. We see Jun laugh at how Chai had used ketchup in order to generate fake blood. The scene then shifts to next morning when Jun heads to the office after meeting Chai. Here he also dumps the dirty clothes in the garbage bag. While Jun does this, a lady sees him and suspects that he may be involved in something wrong. The scene then shifts to Jun's office where he narrates the incident to his friend, who finds it quite funny and says, "I wish I had a wife like yours who would play pranks on or with me." However, Jun wasn't seeing the funny side of incident and thought to himself that perhaps Chai was testing him on whether Jun still loved her or not, so that she could decide about the future. We then see that Jun texts his wife while returning from office that he was coming home, and she is shown to be preparing dinner and thinks of another naughty idea while reading the text. After a while, when Jun returns and enters the house, he finds his wife in a weird condition. He sees Chai's head was inside the mouth of an alligator, which seemed to be real. Jun proceeds to his wife quietly and takes her out of the alligator's mouth. Here we see Chai hug Jun emotionally and thanks him for saving her. After this we see Chai calls Jun for dinner. Days keep passing, and we see Jun play an innovative prank every day. Her pranks range from pretending to be a maid who dies after a fight to acting as a soldier who had been killed in the battle with the enemies. But Jun is most impressed by her prank, in which she seems to have an arrow in her head and appreciates her creativity. Having said that, even he grew tired of her pranks with the passing of time. Here we see Jun throwing all the things used by his wife during the prank. And every day the cleaning lady gave him a strange look. One day we see that the cleaner, out of curiosity, checks the garbage, where she finds a blood-stained knife, and she creates a fuss about it, until Jun comes and tells her it was ketchup. Jun goes to the office and tells everything to his friend. He says that he was fed up of these pranks and asks his friend if he had a solution to it. Jun's colleague tells him to take her to her parents' house for a few days. In the course of the conversation, Jun shares how he met Chai Kagami. He says, "One day, while I was going for a business meeting, it so happened that I missed the bus. At that very moment, Chai saw me and invited me to her father's restaurant." Chai Kagami was a beautiful young girl, but it was her cheerful personality that attracted Jun. Jun tells his friend that Chai lost her mother when she was only 5, but she had never shared the sorrow of her with anyone. While they were in the restaurant, Chai told Jun that she wanted to visit a restaurant in Tokyo. After some time, Jun invites Chai to Tokyo. Jun's friend was quite impressed by the story, and we see Jun return home in the evening, where he was greeted by the now familiar scene of Chai acting to be dead. He goes to his wife and acts as if he was really depressed by her death. But as soon as he notices the price tag on her costume, he stops the drama. This was because the costume she wore for the act was extremely expensive. The next day, we see Jun inform his friend how he was also partaking in her wife's drama, in the hope that she might give up pranks after seeing this. Next, we see that Jun returns home to find his wife pranking again, and this time she was kidnapped by a bunch of aliens. Jun also performs his part and fights the dummy aliens. But still, Jun's plan wasn't working as Chai Kagami continued her pranks. Rather, her expectations from Jun increases, and she tells him the better you perform, the quicker I shall regain consciousness. The next day, we see Chai act as a vampire, and now Jun has to take out a knife from her chest. Then we see that Chai was awake, and she was so much into her character that she bites Jun. Next, we see how Chai lay on a grave like Juliet, and how Jun revives her like Romeo. These things, however, were affecting Jun a lot, and he wasn't able to concentrate in his work. He was afraid to go home every day, and here we see Jun's friend serves him with a favor so that he could come out of this. He invites Jun and Chai for a dinner. Here we see Jun's friend's wife ask Chai of how she ended up marrying Jun. Then we see the movie goes into a flashback. In the flashback, we are shown that after meeting in her father's restaurant they met in Tokyo, took her to the restaurant which Chai Kagami always wanted to visit. They ordered a number of sweets from there, and when their sweets had finished, and they were left with a single one, we see Chai Kagami divides the sweet into two which were unequal in proportion. Here Jun acts naughty and says he wants the larger share, to which Chai sweetly agrees. This was the beginning of their story. The scene shifts to the present day, and we see Jun heading home from office when he sees an ad for a job vacancy. He takes it and thinks to give it to his wife, so that her mind will be diverted from pranks when she gets a job. As usual, Jun finds Chai as an Egyptian princess and does his part of reviving her. At dinner, he informs her about the job, which she accepts, but doesn't leave her pranks. Next, we see her act to be killed by robbers, and Jun, being fed up, asks her not to do any drama regarding death. The next day, Jun thought that Chai would stop the prank and takes flowers for her. But now Chai acted as an already dead human being. She was a ghost. The next day, we see that Chai acts to be a robot as it was Sunday. That night, Jun invites his friend and his wife for dinner. The girl named Yumiko likes Chai's alligator, which she once used for prank, and so she asks Chai if she could have it. Jun's friend was amazed to know that his wife had liking for such pranks. After this, we see the boys declare that they would be heading to a holiday for a few days all alone. This scares Yumiko, and Chai does something to make her normal. We then see how they play arm wrestling, and the gift for the winner was the toy alligator, which Yumiko gets. The scene shifts to when Jun returns home the next day. He finds Chai dressed up as a human being of 2050. At first, he enjoys with her, and then gives up and says, "What should I do so that you give such mischiefs up?" We then see Chai do some calculations about their future, but doesn't find an answer. We then see Yumiko meets Chai and thanks her for making her realize her talent and that she was separating from her husband. To this, Chai tells Yumiko to reconsider her decision and not to hurry. The scene then shifts to a restaurant where the boys are in discussion, and Jun's friend says that their divorce was the best thing for both, as Yumiko deserves someone better. Here we see Jun briefly discuss his first marriage, and they leave the place drunk. Chai takes them home and in the morning informs Jun that his father-in-law had suffered a heart attack. Chai travels to her hometown and is happy to watch her father recovering. We then see her coming out and weeping. After this, Jun learns that it was not new for Chai to play a prank, as she had done this when she lost her mother at 5 out of depression, and how it helped him recover from the trauma of losing his wife. After this, Jun realizes that how since the pranks have started, they are spending more time together, and they began to bond with each other. He realizes how Chai Kagami did this to help him relive from monotonous life stress and boredom. We then see that Jun proposes to Chai and decides to spend their life together. They spent quality time together and returned to their city. After this, their routine became normal. One day when Chai returns from work, she finds her husband dead and lying on the floor, and tries to wake him up. Then, Jun wakes up and says he was playing a prank and offers her dinner, but Chai couldn't take the prank as she was afraid to lose Jun. In the ending credits, we see how Jun is trying to pacify Chai. This is how the story ends. Thus, the movie ends. Thank you for watching.